Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Mass Market Madness number 3. If you're new to this channel, welcome. If you're new to this series, let me tell you a little bit about it. It's pretty simple. These are meant to be decks that I recommend that are also really affordable. So often tarot, sometimes oracle. Today we have a bit of a mix of both, but these are all meant to be decks that are available in the mass market. So these are decks that you can get from your local bookstore or off of Amazon or your local metaphysical store, whatever works for you. But these are often pretty easy to get your hands on, all things considered. Sometimes they go in and out of availability, but oftentimes they do stick around for a while. So you don't need to be in a rush to pick these up, but there are some amazing hidden gems at our regular bookstores, online, at really affordable prices. And I really love to share these because I think a lot of times, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, we really like our indie decks in this community. And I think that's fantastic. I love indie decks, but there are so many amazing mass market decks. So I'm going to share some favorites of mine, especially a couple more recent favorites that I've really been enjoying, and then a couple really long-term favorites. So it'll be a little bit of a mix. So I'm going to start with a tarot deck that recently came into my collection, and that is the beautiful Luna Soul Tarot by Liminal 11. Now, this actually comes in a bigger, sturdier box, but I have this really cute Peggy bag that she made me, and look at the color match, right? Like, it's so perfect. And I find that the Liminal 11 boxes are really beautiful and sturdy for a shelf, but because I like to be in and out of my decks, I like keeping them in a bag. So this deck is, I think, just absolutely brilliant. Now, this is the more recent printing, which is printed on a matte cardstock, and it is my favorite cardstock that Liminal 11 has ever done. It's easy to shuffle, it's not too terribly thick, and it's matte, and it's just beautiful. Now, it does come with this adorable little hardbound guidebook, which is so cute. I have it in the bag with the deck for now, but to be honest, this usually lives on my bookshelf because as wonderful as this little guidebook is, this deck is so easy to read right out of the box. I did do a full deep dive walkthrough of the deck. Let's just bring this in a little closer. One of the things I love about this is that it's got a really beautiful kind of modern feel. The colors in here in the artwork is a little bit on the softer side, which is lovely, but it's modern, it's diverse. I feel like we really get a representation of what life looks like. And I do tend to lean into working with decks like this for my work with clients, because I feel like look at the body diversity in the Queen of Cups. I just feel like this deck does a really beautiful job of showing a wide variety of types of people. There is also a bonus card in this deck called Duality, which I think is brilliant considering, I mean, like, look at the backs. But this is one of those decks that I feel like you can just pick up and start reading with, particularly if you're familiar with Rider-Waite-Smith meanings. I love that in the Three of Pentacles, we have this really group of very different people clearly working together to accomplish something. But I mean, I could go on, and I have in my quite a deep dive walkthrough of this deck. Like, even the Tower, I really like. There's water on one side, fire on the other. There is a lot of balance and duality present throughout this deck. But for me, I just really like that I can pull it off the shelf at any point and read with it for myself or for somebody else. And it's easy and it's lovely. It's really beautifully produced. I love the coloring. I love the layers of meaning. And there is so much incredible symbology in this deck. I feel like you could definitely spend a long time just getting to know all the different symbols and things that are represented on the cards. And last I checked, this was going for around $20 US on Amazon. So just to give you an idea of price point, super affordable, beautifully produced. And I will say that Liminal 11, as a smaller publisher, their production quality and their decks kind of have an indie deck feel, but at a mass market price, which I think is pretty incredible. There are other publishers that I think do that really well as well. One of them is US Games. A lot of their more recent decks have a very indie deck feel at a mass market price. Again, amazing. But I love the Luna Soul Tarot, and I just think it's such a joy to work with. So I can't recommend this one highly enough. I really, really love it. The next deck that I want to talk about is another new but not new to me deck. This is the Messenger Oracle by Raven Phelan, and this is the newest printing by Blue Angel Publishing. This cardstock feels like indie deck cardstock. It's like thick, it's matte. This is like a tarot-sized Oracle deck. It's really, really beautiful. And the artwork is incredibly vibrant, and the keywords are very expansive. See the signs. Do not fear the unknown. Know you belong. trust in magic. Like the artwork is vibrant, it's gorgeous, it's borderless on all three sides with just the titles on the bottom. Look at this Surrender to the Flow card. Like, it's so pretty. Know your power. Love that you are different. Challenge your perception. This one pairs really well with a lot of decks, but I love its sort of fantasy art feel. I just love how high quality it feels in the hand, and I feel like there's some really great, like, be honest, there's some really great keyword combinations or title combinations in this deck. Again, super easy to read with, and if you want like an oracle deck that you can come out and like probably use alongside, like along with tarot spreads that you like to use, this one's a really good one to do that sort of thing with. Really enjoy this deck a lot. Wash away your burdens. And it definitely doesn't feel like your typical mass market oracle deck, which again, nothing wrong with that, but I shouldn't say again, I haven't said it yet, but there's nothing wrong with that. However, I just feel like this gives you a really premium feel of a deck at a really affordable price. And last time I checked the Messenger Oracle, it was going for about this second edition, or this second printing, I should say. I don't know how you express it, because I don't think it's called the second edition, but anyways, this version was going for around $25 US. Really, really beautiful. And it does come with a gorgeous little guidebook that gives you a page or so, like about a paragraph, a pretty sizable paragraph on each of the cards. So you aren't flying blind with the deck. You do get more to it. And Raven Flan's artwork is, I think, just absolutely stunning. Okay, this next one is a newfound fast favorite. I very recently actually shared my walkthrough on the channel, and that is the Good Karma Tarot by Carrie Ward. Okay, I'm already zoomed in. I'm just going to stay zoomed in because you know we want to see this artwork, right? Oh my gosh. This is such a great deck. It is glossy, and I will say production quality is not my favorite in the sense that this was divided into two piles in the box, and there is a slight unevenness to the cut because each pile was like a millimeter or so off cut-wise, which is a bummer. But it shuffles really beautifully, especially hand over hand. I find riffling, it does clump a little because of the slight size difference in the cards. And I think you might be able to even pick it up just slightly there. And I'm not the biggest fan of glossy cardstock. However, I will look past those things because this deck is very well thought out and well done. It is another modern and diverse deck. I feel like the symbols in here are tucked away in really smart ways without being overwhelming. And I feel like if you were new to tarot especially, this is even better. But I freaking love this deck, and I've been reading the tarot for a long, long time. But I love the wide range of people and environments we see in this deck. I love how relatable it feels. I love how current it feels. It feels like anybody could see themselves in this deck, and I shouldn't say that because I know there's always, that's never going to be true, right? But it still feels really accessible and, again, relatable. But it's also really smart. A lot of the same symbols you would see in a classic Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck you do see in here, especially if you know what to look for. Like, I love the Ten of Swords in the back here, but it's on this jacket as opposed to the person being stabbed in the back, literally. The sunflower and the black cat from the Queen of Wands are here. The symbols that you're used to seeing are either in the clothing of the people or the tattoos that they have on their skin or the surrounding landscape. It's really smart. I love the facial expressions on the characters, and while some might find a deck like this a little bit cartoony, for lack of a better way to express it, if you don't mind the actual art style, I really, really find this to be such a fun deck, and one that I think is already incredibly underrated for what it is and what it offers. This goes head to head for me wanting to reach for it with my This Might Hurt Tarot, which is an independent deck that a lot of you know I absolutely adore and use constantly, but I would reach for this one in all the same situations I would reach for This Might Hurt, and that's saying a lot because This Might Hurt is probably, up until this point, was probably my most frequently reached for deck as far as just being able to use it for just any type of reading. So yeah, I really, really, really love this. Beautiful death card. Anyway, I can't recommend the Good Karma Tarot enough, and I think the guidebook is actually really well done. If you are somebody who has read or has been recommended to read Kitchen Table Tarot by Melissa Sanova, I think you would appreciate the way that the guidebook approaches the topic of tarot. It does approach it in a very plain speak, easy to know, easy to understand kind of way, which makes the guidebook and the deck very beginner friendly. And what really blows my mind is that the last time I saw this deck on Amazon, it was going for around $20 US, which for a boxed set with a full color printed guidebook to me, that's incredible. Like, it's got so much good information in here, and I feel like it describes what you see in the artwork. It describes the historical meaning of the card. It talks about the astrological associations for the card. Like, you get a lot in here, but it's very approachable, and I just think that is awesome. So the Good Karma Tarot is definitely one that I think is worth checking out if you're looking for a good, affordable, mass market tarot deck for your collection. Let's jump over to an oracle deck now and talk about one of my longest time favorite oracle decks ever. And it's been one that's been very hard to beat and has led to a number of newer oracle decks being anti-hauled. This is the Goddess Oracle by Amy Sophia Marashinsky and illustrated by Harana Janto. I'm not the biggest fan of the backs of these cards, but this deck is so beautifully done. It is my favorite to date goddess-themed oracle deck, and I just think it's really, really, really well done. I think it's also very respectfully done. I like the artwork. I think that the artwork is really stunning. I have intentions to trim this deck because I have seen it trimmed where people have taken the sides and the top and a bit off the bottom so that, of course, you have just this black on the inside. And the artwork just sings in that way. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet. But I've had this deck a long time. I think it's gorgeous. And it's not even just the cards. They're like standard kind of thinnish, but they're not overly glossy. What I love about this deck is how well, I feel like I can get to know the characters in these cards by working with the guidebook. So I think it's really worth pointing out that sometimes the decks that I find to be the most valuable are ones that the cards are fine, but the guidebook is excellent. And this is definitely one of those where the cards are great. I love the artwork, and I don't mean to dismiss how beautiful they are by any stretch. But what really bonded me to this deck and made it feel like one that was super special and likely to stay in my collection over the long term was just how well done this book is that comes with the deck. So for every single one of these goddesses or divine feminine figures that are in the deck, you have a sort of, I would like to say, an invocation. It doesn't call itself that, but there's an invocation. It's kind of poetic. It feels like words of power if you wanted to work with this particular figure. And then you get a little bit about their mythology, and then you get a ritual suggestion, or a meaning of the card and a ritual suggestion. And the rituals are all really accessible and lovely and simple, but also feel like they're very full of meaning. And so when you're working with one of these figures, you have something you can do to connect with their energy, and it's all really healing and beautiful. I think it's really well done and has a lot of depth that other goddess oracles I've seen come out since do seem to lack in a way. I'm not saying they all do, but I haven't felt the urge to buy any of them because I have this. This is the one that just always scratches the itch for me, and you will have seen that. If you've ever seen me anti-haul a goddess-based oracle, it's almost always this one that I say I have, and that's why I don't need those other ones. So I think this is one of those categories of deck too where I feel like I don't need a whole bunch of different ones. I feel like I just need one or two that I can connect with and that make me feel like I can connect with that divine energy. I'm repeating myself, but you get the idea. I feel like I only need a little bit to be able to do this kind of work, and this one just totally fits the bill for me. Also, the Goddess Oracle runs often for around $20 to $25 US, so it definitely falls into that affordable range. Okay, it's time for my last recommendation in today's episode of Mass Market Madness, and I'm really excited about this one because it is a long time favorite, and it continues to be an incredibly affordable deck, and that is the Druid Craft Tarot by, oh gosh, I always forget who it's by. Philip and Stephanie Cargom, and the artwork is by Will Worthington. Now, my copy of the Druidcraft Tarot is fully trimmed. It's apparently a mess at the moment. It is fully trimmed, and I'm not fond of the trim job that I did on this deck. I do have plans to retrim a new copy and take the borders entirely off and just keep the artwork. It is a really gorgeous deck, but the cards are huge when you get them. They have big borders, but this is a stunning deck. First of all, Will Worthington's art is incredible. I mean, look at that fool. Hello? He's so great. This is probably also one of the more pagan feeling decks. Like, I like that for the magician, we have this very high priest-like figure. We have a high priestess. I love that we have the lady and the lord for the empress and the emperor. This feels very much like mother goddess and horned god energy. I really enjoy this deck. It has a heavily Celtic feel, but it also stays very true to the symbology or the arrangement of figures in the Rider-Waite-Smith, with a few exceptions that I think are actually really helpful to getting to know the deck. For example, where we normally have Judgment, which is a very Christian heavy sort of looking image, which a lot of the tarot, let's face it, are based on Christian theology and things like that. But here we have this very Celtic idea of rebirth, and we still have all the same things here, meaning-wise, that we have in the Rider-Waite-Smith version of the card, of course, but it is just updated, and it feels like we're in, I don't know, Scotland or Wales or Ireland. And I mean, like, look at this with the Avalon vibes. I just, oh, it's so good. It's so beautiful. But more than that, I think it just brings you into this wild world. And if you're drawn to sort of the Celtic mythos or the Celtic pantheons, you'll probably really enjoy working with this deck. And it actually, there's two different ways you can purchase this deck, or there was the last time I bought it. The first way is just in a box set with sort of a little white book style pamphlet inside, which is decent. But the other way, and the way that I definitely recommend, is to buy it in its full boxed set, which is a few more dollars. Sometimes I've seen the boxed set go for as much as 35 US or so. Right now it's hovering at around 30 bucks. But the boxed set comes with this absolutely gorgeous and incredible guidebook that is worth its weight. If I ever for some reason wasn't working with the tarot, I think I'd still keep the guidebook because the guidebook is excellent. You can see, I referenced this guidebook actually in my Tarot Memoirs series, which if you haven't seen, it's where I go through the entire tarot and I read from some of my favorite books, some excerpts about what the cards mean. You can see that here. And I also shared some personal life experiences that I have with each of those, the energies of each of the cards. So it's a really great learning series that I did on the channel. But anyway, this was one of the decks I used for that series because it's just so dang good. Not only is it good in general, like it's just got great meanings, you've got reversed meanings, you've got keywords, and it's just really well done. But there's actually some wonderful numerology information in here. So if you were wanting to eventually work with pip cards, or you just wanted to get to know the numbers of the tarot really well, this is a book that drastically shifted the way that I looked at the tarot. So for every single number in from 1 to 9, I think it is, or does it even include 10? I can't remember now. Yep, it's got the 10s also. So from 1 to 10, it has an introductory page that talks about the actual numbers. So here's the page I have open on the 2s, and you have keywords for the 2s. You have a bunch of information about the meaning of a 2, and it has the message of the 2s is join the dance, experience its beauty and its depth. To dance courageously with commitment and with consciousness is to live life to the full. And then you get all the 2s of the minor arcana, and then it does the same thing for the 3s and so on. That's just one small thing. There's some incredible large spreads also in this book that I think are just amazing. You can kind of get a feel from the table of contents because you have the outer mysteries where you have the court cards, and then you have aces, 2s, 3s, 4s, all the way through the tarot. And then you have the inner mysteries where it talks about the major arcana. And then you have how to use the cards. There's several amazing spreads. It's just a very well done guidebook. Now, this version of the guidebook is the first printing from 2004, but again, it is constantly being printed, and I recently repurchased this deck, so I do have a slightly newer copy, and the cardstock is pretty much the same. It's kind of like flexible. I'd say like 310 GSM, but it's flexible, but it's held up really nicely. And the new guidebook is it's exactly the same as far as I can tell. It feels a little bit more flexible in the cover, but mine's also old and pretty worn, so that could just also be what it is. But anyway, it's an excellent guidebook, and it makes the purchase just totally worthwhile. I can't believe really that we still have decks like this at such affordable prices when you see what comes out in the independent market. And again, I love my independent decks, but when you see what we pay for now, to think something like this is out there for like 30 bucks is just, to me, it's incredible. So I love this deck. I highly recommend this deck, and it's one of my long time favorites. I could never imagine not having this in my collection. And in fact, I actually did try to bond with Will Worthington's, another deck that Will Worthington had illustrated called the Wildwood Tarot. But I find that one strays from the traditional sort of understanding of the major arcana quite a bit, and I found it a lot more challenging to work with. So between the two, I ended up keeping this one and rehoming my Wildwood, as beautiful as it is, because this one I feel like just I can use in so many other ways. So yeah, love the Druidcraft Tarot. Highly recommend it. I also feel like this deck, has a little bit more of that sort of masculine energy that I think sometimes is missing from more modern decks. So I like that there's like a kind of a really nice male or masculine kind of feel to this deck at times. It's not lacking in feminine energy, but I just feel like it's a little more weighted masculine in a way that I find refreshing sometimes. So I really appreciate that about this deck too. So that is the Druidcraft Tarot, and that is my last recommendation for today's episode of Mass Market Madness. Now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments down below of your favorite affordable mass market tarot or oracle deck, and share that with other people in the comments too, so that when other people find these videos, they can see what other people are using and appreciating that is in that sort of affordable range. I try to keep decks that are like high-end 30-35 in this category, but you do you, and if you've got a deck that, even if it's independent but it's really affordable, share that down below. It doesn't have to be mass market, but let's sort of share the love for our mass market decks and help other people who are looking for decks in their budget to find what they need or what they might really, really enjoy in this sort of world. Thank you again so much for joining me. Please do remember to click the like button if you enjoyed this video or you found value in it. Subscribe if you're new here, and don't forget to click the little notification bell so you're notified of all my future videos. Thank you again so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye, guys.